message telling you I'm recording. And I will then start. Good afternoon and welcome to today's Belfast Garden Club presentation, Moving Forward, Travel Tales and Wildlife Photography with Shelley Lance-Fulk and Jacklyn Amtower. I'm Brenda Harrington, Program Librarian at the Belfast Free Library, and we're pleased to host a daytime lecture series with the Belfast Garden Club again this year, and glad we're able to do so virtually. Thank you all for joining us. Before I turn the mic over to Corliss Davis from the Belfast Garden Club for updates and to introduce our speakers, I want to remind everyone to keep your mics muted and let you know the program is being recorded and will be available on the library's YouTube channel. All right, with that, Corliss, take it away.
Thank you very much, Brenda. And I would like to point out this is our last program for the 2021 program year that Margaret and I had the privilege of working on. And we want to thank Brenda again for all the tremendous and essential support she has been giving to us and the library has been giving us by hosting these programs on their Zoom account. So kudos to Brenda. So our two speakers today are sisters, actually, who live near Greenville, Maine. They have been traveling and photographing wildlife around the world since their teens. They have co-authored 4 books. And I know from personal experience at their booth at the Arts in the Park event down here in Belfast in, I guess, June, that they have they use their photographs in wonderful ways to produce trivets and all kinds of things that they will tell you about, I think, at the end of their presentation. So we would ask any of you with questions to please put them in the chat during the program, and Margaret Campbell will read them back at the end of Shelley and Jacklyn's presentation. So with that, I turn it over to our sisters.
Thank you. I'm Jacklyn Amtower.
And I'm Shelley Lance-Fulk.
And we're known as the Traveling Sisters. I'd like to start today with a little reading, an excerpt from one of our books, Upside Down and Backwards, to give you a feel of what it's like being a wildlife photographer around the world. The steep, rocky, snowy, and icy slope we had to negotiate was frightening, and I hadn't brought my hiking boots. Why? Everyone helped each other as we began our descent, cautiously traversing the slope. We made turn after turn, making slow progress downward. When we hit a large, steep snowfield, a decision had to be made. Do we slide down or do we continue to zigzag on foot? What did the Ernest Shackleton group do? Several of the group sat on the snow, locked legs, and tobogganed down the slope, while the rest of us decided it was safer to continue traversing the slope on foot, even though it would take longer to get down. We made several safe turns until I slipped. I was holding on to another gentleman from the ship, and I took him down with me. We started to slide, and with our speed increasing, we began tumbling down the icy mountainside. There was no stopping us as we somersaulted and slid downward. We could not control our descent and mowed down 3 other climbers who became part of our tumbling party. At the bottom of the slope was a 300-foot waterfall towards which our group of 5 was heading. With just about 100 feet to go, I'll leave it right there. The conclusion is in our book, Upside Down and Backwards, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. I guess you can see that, maybe?
Oh, there we go.
Upside down and backwards.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go into our
Screen share. Yeah.
and begin our PowerPoint presentation. All right, as I said, we're the Traveling Sisters, and our presentation is called Moving Forward, Travel Tales and Wildlife Photography. We've had a passion for travel and animals since our teens. Our first trip was to Europe with a little Brownie Instamatic camera, and we ended up spending time photographing cows and chickens and horses and ducks rather than monuments. So in college, when we were trained with film cameras, we headed right for the environments that had animals. We started our company about 15 years ago, Compass Rose Images. It was named after my husband, who was a marine engineer. And he thought, since we travel the world like he did, that the Compass Rose, the navigational tool for mariners, would be a good image for us to use. We share our art and our photographs at fairs and on our website, in speaking engagements. Some of the galleries hold our things. So we have a good time sharing our images with as many people as we can. We've written 4 books. Can I Carry Your Luggage tells a story. The first one about I was bitten by a scorpion in my tent and had to find a witch doctor to get the venom out. The second one, which I quoted a little bit from, Upside Down and Backwards, tells our stories and our adventures in Africa and Antarctica. Chroma Mania is our third book. And you probably wonder about the name. Since we're from Maine, we put an I in Chroma Mania. Without that, it is a psychiatric condition that talks about the compulsion of us to travel and explore the world, observing and photographing animals. There is no cure, and we really don't want to be cured from our disease here. And our new book that came out last year is called GPS. We spent a lot of time in Ethiopia last year in the middle of COVID. We got home in the middle of March, but we spent time with 9 different tribes, which is a fascinating experience. We've been to all 7 continents multiple times, Antarctica, for example, 6 times. One of our favorite continents, of course, is Africa. I'd like to start with just a little slideshow with some of our favorite images you might enjoy.
If I could talk to the animals, just imagine it, chatting with a chimp in chimpanzee. Imagine talking to a tiger, chatting with a cheetah. What a neat achievement it would be if we could talk to the animals, learn their languages, maybe take an animal degree. I'd study elephant and eagle, buffalo and beagle, alligator, guinea pig and flea. I would converse in polar bear and python, and I would curse in fluent kangaroo. If people asked me, can you speak rhinoceros? I'd say, of course, can't you? If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me. If I consulted with quadrupeds, think what fun we'd have, asking over crocodiles for tea. Or maybe lunch with 2 or 3 lions, walruses and sea lions. What a lovely place the world would be. If I spoke slang to orangutans, the advantages any fool on earth can plainly see. Discussing Eastern art and dramas with intellectual llamas, that's a big step forward, you'll agree. I'd learn to speak in antelope and turtle. My Pekingese would be extremely good. If I were asked to sing in hippopotamus, I'd say why notamus, and would. If I could parley with pachyderms, it's a fairy tale worthy of Hans Andersen or Grimm. A man who walks with the animals, talks with the animals, grunts and squeaks and squawks with the animals, and they could talk to him. I'd study every living creature's language so I could speak to all of them on sight. If friends said, can he talk in crab or pelican? You'd say like Helligan, and you'd be right. And if you just stop and think a bit, there's no doubt of it, I would win a place in history. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt, squeak, squawk with the animals, and they could squeak and squawk and talk to me.
Think we have a good time? People ask often how we travel. We do a lot of flying. In fact, the upcoming trip we have in December involves 15 flights. So if we can take a ship, we will do just that. This is us on the Queen Mary a couple of years ago when we transversed the Suez Canal down to Africa. To get to some of our remote areas in Africa, we will take a bush-piloted plane. It gets us very close to where we need to be. Sometimes we'll hike in, sometimes we'll take a safari vehicle as well. We'll take trains in cities. Taking a bus is always interesting. This one was in Indonesia. We don't speak the language. We don't know the money. We don't exactly know where we're going. But we get on the bus, kind of open our hands. Hopefully they'll take the right amount of coinage from us. But people will always stop to help us get off at the right stop. Because when you come up to a sign like this, we don't have a clue whether we should get off or stay on. This is how close we can get to the animals. This is a typical safari open vehicle. It's very close to, probably too close to these elephants. They're all four-wheel drive. The roads are very bad, pocked and bumpy. It's not unusual to have flat tires or broken axles. So you have to be careful when you are in these vehicles. Sometimes we'll get around to film some of the smaller aquatic animals and dugout canoes. Sometimes we get on a horse or a camelback to get where we're going. A lot of time we spend trekking. This is in Indonesia. This is a little tuk-tuk. Both of us in that vehicle was a little difficult for this guy, but he took his dollar and pedaled his little heart out to get us to where we were going. If we're lucky enough, we'll hop on the back of a motorcycle. Again, for $1, they'll take you just about anywhere. This is in Africa. We don't use drones because sometimes the whirring will disturb animals, but if there's a hot air balloon in the area, we'll hop aboard and film from the air. Africa is, of course, one of our favorite continents. I think we've been to 17 or 19 countries there. It's really a continent of contrast, from the beauty of the morning sunrise to the sunsets. The expansiveness of the plains, there are animals everywhere. The hustle and bustle, the confusion, the chaos of the cities. We try to get out of the city as quick as we can. The traffic, the noise, the pollution, it's just chaos. This is a slum city outside of Nairobi called Kibera. About 1 million people live in this area. It's a self-contained city. It has schools and butcher shops and car repair shops. And people usually work in the city about a 5 to 10 mile walk every day to get to work. But it's very primitive. Most people, I guess, don't have electricity, running water, that type of thing. But one of our favorite towns is Cape Town. It's vibrant, there's street musicians, great food. We use that as a respite. We write our books there, and then we'll foray out for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, come back, write our next story, collect our film. And then when we come back to the States, our publisher has both the stories and the photos ready to go. And sometimes we just go for pleasure, like Victoria Falls. A couple years ago for Shelley's 60th birthday, she did a zip line from Zimbabwe to Zambia. And when she got off before they let her off the zip line, she had to show her passport because she's going from one country to another. But she had a great view of Victoria Falls. As I said, sometimes we'll just enjoy the quiet of the deltas or the small rivers and just watch and see who shows up. Where we stay, if we're lucky, we'll stay in a nice tented camp like this. They're open, there are no fences, so animals are free to wander about. It's not unusual to have animals sleeping up against your tent at night. This one has an ensuite, it's very comfortable. But sometimes we're not quite as lucky. This is a little tent. You can see the gentleman in red to the side digging our latrine. The trees behind hide the water hole where the elephants bathe during the night. They walk right on by all night long. You can feel the vibrations of their feet. Sometimes cats go through. Once you're in your tent at night, you never come out. You'll have a whistle or a horn. So if you get into trouble, there's another tent nearby with the guides, with the guns. They won't shoot the animals, but they'll shoot in the air to scare them away. But it is a little concerning at night when you hear all these noises and don't quite know what it is. We love our animals, from the smallest primate, the bush baby, to the majestic male waterbuck. This is kind of an interesting animal, especially from behind. You can see the white collar around his neck. Well, on his butt, he has the same white collar, but it's in the shape of a toilet seat. So if you see a toilet seat walking by, you know it's a male waterbuck. Of course, you have the silly camels. They're real cute Madagascar lemurs. Last year, we went to Ethiopia specifically to film the Ethiopian gelada baboon, or the bleeding heart monkey, they call it, and the Ethiopian wolf. Once it was known as a simian fox, but DNA showed that it's actually a wolf. They live above 10,000 feet in the tundra. It took us 3 or 4 days to actually find one because they have a 25,000 square kilometer territory. And there are only about 150 left on the planet. So we are very lucky to find this and a few others. And of course, you always look for the big five: your lion, your leopard, your rhino. These rhinos have had their horns clipped to stop the poaching. The horns are like keratin, so they will grow back. Looks like these are on their way back. Doesn't hurt the animal. They anesthetize them, and then as they grow back, they become rhinos once again. But the poachers really aren't interested in them with the horns. And one of our favorite is the Cape buffalo. He's a herbivore, but he thinks nothing about staring you down and will attack if you're too close. And of course, your elephant. A couple others that are not the big five that you see frequently are your zebras, and of course, your hippos. Now, it's not easy traveling the way we do. It takes a lot of planning. Almost from the moment we return to the States, we start planning for the next trip. You always have problems with flights. The airports are congested. You don't speak the language in many of these places. If a flight is canceled, how do you get to the next destination? Planning for accommodations is interesting also because we have to find a guide and a tracker, set up a tent in some cases for us, provide food, transportation. The weather's also an unexpected delight. Sometimes in Antarctica, you'll get these katabatic winds that come swooping down the slopes and start an immediate snowstorm. In the summer, you've got your heat of the African plains. A couple of years ago, we hit 5 continents in one trip. We were gone for almost 5 months. We started in the US, went to Europe, went to South America, to Antarctica, and then to Africa. So we had to plan for not only weather, but clothing, equipment to accommodate all of our different environments. And safety is always a concern. We always look who's behind us. COVID is a whole other issue we have to deal with. The animals, of course, pose a danger at times. And the roads also are typically bad, especially in Africa. You can see you're driving through, pocked dirt roads. As I said, it's not uncommon to have broken axles or flat tires. But I talked about the animals. This is in the Serengeti, and we had an encounter with a couple cheetahs. In the daytime, we don't worry too much about the cats. They usually stay away from you, but the cheetahs are pretty interested in us, so they will actually hop into the vehicle. A little scary at times, but they really won't bother us. And here's Shelley taking a picture, a close-up of a cheetah. Look at the expression on the fellow's face. Little unsure of what's going to happen next. They got bored and left. And you can get pretty close to cheetahs. These are There were 2 adult cheetahs that spend their days in a resort area. They're very familiar with people, and you can actually go up and pet them, but they are wild animals.
Elephants are one of our favorites, and it indicates the circle of life, and we'll get into that a little bit more. The elephants are herd animals. The females will be together, and what's interesting, the females will also, it doesn't matter who gave birth to the babies, but they will all take care of each of the babies as if they're their own. And sometimes we're very lucky to be right outside of an area where animals will roam. In this case, here's a herd of elephants walking down a dry riverbed. We were very, very fortunate to see this right outside of our tent. And they're moving off to the left to an area that had a small water hole. So there was a reason for them coming down this dry riverbed. And as you can see, these 2 females are taking care of that little baby right in between them. And they will do that at all costs. I mean, they will not allow a baby to be injured. They are very protective. Very cute. The one thing that you can say about elephants, if the baby is small enough to fit under mama's belly, they're under a week old. During the day, in many cases, it's very, very hot. And if they're not at a watering hole, they will use the dust and dirt to keep the bugs off of them and to try to keep their skin cool. And here we have a beautiful sight of a nursing baby and mom. And one of my favorites, we saw these 2 playing in the mud, and mom's trying to get them to move along, but they just wanted to play in the mud. This was taken on the Kafui River. We were in a dugout canoe, as we do many times on little river areas. And this one, you can see the top of his head is dry. And we watched as he crossed the river, where all we could see was the top of his head and the tip of his trunk, until he got to the edge of the river and came out. And magnificent animal, just beautiful. Lots of times we stop to watch herds of elephants playing. And in this case, they not only were playing with each other, but they were also vocalizing. So it was really interesting to hear as well as see. You can see the little baby in between. Keep going. We did see something that was sort of distressing. I'm not sure you can tell that there is an animal on the left-hand side in the foreground that seems to be stuck in the mud. And the elephant herd, one by one, were leaving, but at some point in time, they're trying to get the animal to move, and they're not having very successful time of it. But we watched as they all moved away from this one animal. And here we have our guide and tracker. Our guide is trying to feed water into the trunk of this animal that's stuck in the mud. And Lucky, the tracker, he's making sure that no other elephant comes back in the area to try to attack the 2 of them. But as it turns out, we really couldn't get this elephant to get up. And so when we got back to our camp a little later, Mike and Lucky called one of the rangers who actually got a veterinarian to come out and check on this animal. And what was very sad, it turned out that the elephant got gored in the back and severed its spinal cord, and unfortunately was never going to move again. And the veterinarian did a lot of tests in the field, and they decided that they would euthanize the elephant and leave it in the field for the prey animals to actually be able to feed off of it. There is, as we said earlier, a circle of life, and this is one of them. A couple of days later, we came by the same area and saw hundreds and maybe even thousands of vultures waiting in the trees surrounding the area where we had seen this elephant. And of course, hyenas, one of the prey animals that will predator animals that will attack and take down live animals. But in this case, they were trying to feed off of the unfortunate dead elephant that we had seen. And here you can see a lot of the hyenas. And the only thing that was left of the elephant was just the bones of the rib cage and one hoof. And as you can see, the birds are trying to get to their portion of the kill. A couple of days, a couple of maybe 50 feet, maybe 100 feet further down the road, we happened to notice something unusual, and we asked our guide about it. There were trees that were down that hadn't been down when we were there a few days before. And as it turned out, our guide said, elephants will grieve just like humans do. And they were so distressed that they had lost one of their family members that they actually destroyed the trees in that area. And once, every year when they come back to that same area, they will stop and have a moment of silence for their fallen family member. It's really a wonderful sight. Sometimes the small is large, and sometimes the large is small, but it's very, very interesting to look high and low. And sometimes you miss, and sometimes you ignore things that you shouldn't. But our guides and trackers give us information about being really aware of our surroundings. We were in the estuary by St. Lucia, which is about a 2-hour drive from Durban, South Africa. And this is a beautiful yellow weaver bird. And as you can see, there is an actual nest that the males will build. And if the females don't like the way they've built it, sort of like if they wanted a 3-bedroom condo and the male only built a 2-bedroom condo, they'll actually tear it apart and make the birds build the nest all over again. But what's really interesting when you come upon this, they're built on the reeds in the riverbed. In this case, we were in the Serengeti when we came across a termite mound that had this is a lilac-breasted roller, and little did we know he caught that locust, and it turned out that the locust was as pretty as the bird. And it took him about 5 minutes to choke it down whole. As I said, our guides and trackers really make us aware of things like animal prints, and you can tell which direction that they're going so that you can follow and see if you can find these animals that have moved before you. And here's a wonderful little leopard tortoise. We had come across this one in the road and kind of scared him. He retracted into his shell. So we waited for a few minutes to see if he would come out of his shell and walk away, which he did, slowly, of course, but you never know what you're going to come across. This is a hare. It's snack food for some of the big cats. And we do some night drives, and this is an interesting bird. This is a nightjar. It's very small, but you can see how it really blends into the background, so you can hardly see them. But it's an interesting thing that they do. They will fly up in the air directly straight up, and they will catch all the insects as they come down. Sometimes we're very lucky to see something beautiful, like this lovely lily in a kind of gross looking pond that's very dirty, but the flower is beautiful. And sometimes we come across, quite frequently actually, dung, animal dung. In this case, it was elephant. And these are dung beetles that will actually eat the refuse. What's interesting about dung beetles, they can be anywhere between 1 inch and 3 inches long, and they will actually travel by way of the Milky Way, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure how they know that, but they do. And the dung beetle actually can move things 10 times their own weight, which is more than any other critter on Earth. They form these dung balls that's made of sand. And what's interesting, go to the next, please. Thank you. The females will give birth on these dung balls. And what's interesting is that they have enough nutrients that the babies that are born will actually be able to feed off of the nutrients from this dung ball.
The original.
No.
Well, he's got his girlfriend on the side of it. So.
Now, the water horse, of course, is the hippo. This one's so young that doesn't quite have teeth yet. Hippos will spend most of the time in the water during the daytime because their skin is so sensitive, and then they come out at night and forage. So when we're able to see them in the daytime out of the water, it's really a thrill. Here's a family that we found in Botswana a few years ago: mama, baby, and papa. Wonderful sight. We were in a dugout canoe, like you saw in the picture before. Had no idea that there were hippos in the water. We assumed that they probably were, but not that close. When we got closer to the edge of the water, these 3 hippos came out, quite unknown to us, right in front of us, and scared us to death. This is a large male. They're able to dislocate their jaws for dominance. Quite scary. Our pilot, if you call him, with a stick, pushed us back from the dugout, in the dugout canoe, to get us away from these animals. If they had tipped us over, there are also crocodiles in the water, so it was pretty scary there for a moment. And here's a large pod of them, again, outside the water. Now, Shelley talked about St. Lucia, where the bird on the reed was. St. Lucia is known for its estuary that houses about 800 animals, surrounds the town of about 800 people on 3 sides. And during the day, again, the hippos stay in the water, and at night you're warned not to get out because the hippos will come through the town and forage. They'll eat everybody's grass and plants, that type of thing. And we knew that no matter where you are, there's signs: be careful in your hotel, on signs in the street, don't go out at night. And here's one of the nighttime foraging. We were at dinner, finished a little bit late, and started walking back towards our Airbnb. We were very leery that the hippos would be around. And indeed, we were going through a gas station, and right in front of us was a hippo walking through by the fuel tanks, and all was good. And Shelley was behind me. I was watching, and Shelley was filming. And pretty soon I had to have her put down the camera because there were 2 coming right at her. And you'll see how large this hippo is when he gets to the car and the fuel tanks. And it's about now when I tell Shelley to put down her cell phone. There are 2 right behind her.
A few years ago, we were very fortunate to go and visit the silverback gorillas in Uganda. And the day that we went, it had rained the night before. And believe it or not, the mist along the lake in front of us was absolutely magnificent, but it did remind us of the Gorillas in the Mist movie. We had decided to go to the windy impenetrable forest for our tour up to see the beautiful silverback gorillas. And they actually will section you in your physical abilities. And unfortunately, my sister and I are old, fat, and unfit. And so we were in the F troop, and the one that didn't have to go quite as far as some of the others to get to a family unit. The rangers will actually stay out at night to make sure that they know where the animals are, so that in the morning they're able to direct the rangers that are taking the groups up to locate the animals. We were very, very fortunate. And it looks like it's a fairly easy trek, but as you'll see, it gets a little treacherous. We had a guide at the front with a gun and a guide at the back with a gun. They will not use the gun on an animal. They will only shoot into the air to scare the animals away. So not to worry that they're going to injure one of the beautiful gorillas. And here you can see it was kind of muddy as we started our trek up the mountain. And they were using machetes to clear away some of the vegetation as we walked up. And as I said, it had rained the night before, so some of the areas we had to cross little streams that had formed during the night with all the rain. Our porters were carrying our camera equipment, but they also helped us, like in this situation. That's my sister Jackie crossing that downed tree with the help of the porters. And here we had our first sighting of a gorilla. You can see in the bottom left corner of the photograph. Absolutely magnificent silverback. The females will groom the males almost constantly. And this is one of the females looking extremely intelligent as far as I'm concerned. They're just wonderfully magnificent animals. And here's the big male. You can kind of see sort of a polka dot looking thing on their fur. Those are actually flies that are all over the place. It's amazing that they can even tolerate them. I love the hand. It looks so human-like. And we watched the babies. We had two youngsters, about a year old and then a 3-year-old as well in this family unit. And just like kids, you know, they would climb up the tree and they would fall down and roll around and then go right back at it again, just like kids. Very, very cute. And at some point in time, we had been there. They only allow you about an hour with the animals, and we were able to take many, many pictures. But our guide said, "Okay, it's time to leave." And my porter and I were walking down when all of a sudden, out of the forest comes the 3-year-old gorilla that ran up to me and pulled on my shirt. It happened so quickly. I wasn't really afraid, but it just was so quick. And my porter actually allowed me just enough time to turn my camera down since no one else was around to take a picture. But I had to prove that I had a gorilla that pulled on my shirt. So I do have that photo. The following day, we were able to go up to the forest to see the golden monkeys. These golden monkeys are an old world monkey, absolutely beautiful, but they live in a bamboo forest. And that's one of the problems, because the bamboo is quite dry. And if you step on one of the branches, it snaps and the animals will take off immediately. But you can see the beautiful coloration on their backs, their long tails that will allow them to go from branch to branch. They live in groups of anywhere between 40 and 80 animals with a single male that's a dominant. And here you can see what a beautiful face he has, with a very high brow and nostrils that turn up. But you can see what a really exquisite animal he is. We thought the trek up to see the gorillas was tough, but the one going up to see these monkeys was even worse. We were absolutely exhausted, and in a trek that should have taken us about 3 hours to get up and back, took us close to 6. It was just amazing.
Now we go to Africa and other places in the world. We try to spend time with the local people so we can understand how they live and what their interests are. They learn about us, we learn about them. This is a day in Zimbabwe when we went to a school. We played soccer with the kids. They had a good time laughing at us trying to kick the ball in any particular direction. We always have our cameras handy. Kids love to see their own pictures. Some of them have not seen those before. We used to bring Polaroid cameras, but it's become very difficult to find the film. But we'd give the picture to the kids and they'd run home excited to show their parents. But right now we just show them the back of our camera, and just kids just circle around us. They just love that experience. We talked a little bit about Kabura, the slum outside of Nairobi. These are some of the women that live in those slums, and they work in a jewelry factory, make beautiful work. They they're sold all over the world. I don't know what the necklaces and bracelets all sell for, but these women walk up to 5 miles, 10 miles a day to get to work, and they get paid $1 per day. So we do try to help the economy whenever we can. And this again is where they live. This is one of the slum areas. We always try to visit schools. We bring as many supplies as we can. They're short on pencils and papers and books and the things that we take for granted here in the US. But the kids are always welcoming. They sing to us their song. We sing to them. They laugh at us. We laugh at them. But they all love school. There's a little older group. You can see the worn blackboard in the back. This is their desk and their chair. They all share. They are very limited on resources. This is a little older group, again, very limited. Look at the chalkboard back there. It's torn. So whatever we bring is really appreciated by the teachers. And this is one of the schoolrooms. I think it's a 3-room school house, very hot in the summer, one window. It must be very hard to learn, but learning is just a priority of these kids.
One of my favorite things to do is cook, and the other is shopping. So we kind of combined both in Africa, in Arusha, and again in China. And we'll show you what we do as a day in the life. So we actually get to go and visit a family and spend time. And before we go to the local marketplace, and our guides will give us money and ask us to pick out one item. And in this case, it was Tikiti Maji Moja. I had no idea what that was, but here I was with my money. And as we walked through the marketplace, you can see they have fruits and vegetables and legumes and just anything that you could possibly imagine. I kept showing my piece of paper that my guide gave us with the item that they wanted us to purchase. It wasn't the legumes, and we went from stall to stall until we got to this young lady who was just a delight. She was laughing at us. She thought it was so funny, but she did finally give us the item that we needed to purchase. A Tikiti Maji Moja is a watermelon. We got back to the family, and we were actually able to help them cook the meal that we were having with them. It's always a pleasure for us to be able to visit a family and see how they live, get to know them a little bit, and spend time learning their culture. It's just a wonderful thing. And here we are making our meal. This was in China a couple of years later. And our guide once again gave us a piece of paper, all in Chinese, of the item that we needed to purchase for the meal that we were going to have with a local family. And in this case, we looked to see if we could buy fruits or vegetables, and we kept showing the piece of paper to the vendors, and they some of them could not read, so they couldn't tell me what it was. So they tried to sell us something that wasn't correct. We tried to buy meat, we tried to buy fruits, and finally we found out twice, taking the wrong item back to our guide. Finally, on the third try, we needed to purchase green onions for the pot stickers we were going to make. And here is the kitchen of the family that we went to visit. And we were supposed to make the pot stickers. And on the next, there we go. Here's our guide helping me do the dough for the pot stickers, and other people on the other side were actually cutting up the vegetables and the meat for the filling for the pot stickers, which, by the way, turned out really, really good. It certainly enjoyed spending time with our family because the food was absolutely fantastic.
As you all know, without water, there's no life. And it's a particular problem in Africa. You can talk about climate change, but the animals are suffering. A lot of the people are suffering with no water. There is no life. This is a typical source of water for families. It's a dirty pond, if you will. The animals defecate in it, people do their laundry in it, and families gather the water for cooking and for bathing. It's pretty frightening. Here's another stream. You can see the yellow water cans that usually the women go down to the water hole to collect the water. And some of them, again, will walk several miles back to their homes, maybe twice a day. You can see a donkey on the left there, also in the water. Very unsanitary. A lot of the people in the remote villages are covered with, they have parasites throughout their body. They're always suffering from diarrhea, that type of thing. So water is critical. A couple of years ago, we in Arusha in Tanzania, we visited a place that manufactured very inexpensive water filters. We talked to a Mr. Kim who'd been doing this for about 10 years, and he's figured out a way to filter water for $40 for a family that will produce 4 liters of water every hour, and it'll last for 5 years. This filter is made from clay, sawdust, silver shavings, and water all mixed together. It's left for a week in a form that has a little spigot. And then it's fired after that for about 24 hours. And then the sawdust burns off during the firing and leaves the silver dust or the silver shavings, and that becomes the filtration system. It's antimicrobial. And it's a wonderful thing. So we went and we bought several filters for, as I said, $40. We came across the first village. We could see ladies walking towards the water hole to pick up their water for the day. And we introduced this water filter, and you can see one sitting on the bottom with its little spigot. They were all kind of unsure what it was. We spent quite a bit of time. Actually, we didn't. The guide spoke the language. Talked about what this filter would do. They all wanted them, and so we gave them to as many women that we had filters for. And you can see they all have their filter. I love the lady on the right, even with a cell phone in the middle of nowhere. But they took their filters home. This lady was so thrilled and proud to have one. She put it on her head and wanted her picture taken with it. We didn't bring enough, but our guide assured us that when he came back the next time through that village, that he would purchase more and made sure all the ladies that didn't get one would get one the next time. And a couple of years ago, we were lucky enough to be invited to a church, again in Tanzania, and join in a service, big celebration on New Year's Day. We met the clergy and we were invited in. We sat in the back and listened to the service. We couldn't understand it, but we could see that people were very invested in what was being said. Then we were invited back in after the service to join in a celebration. We got to sing and dance with these folks. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this. All right, and I'll just end with kind of showing the cover of our new book, GPS, Go Play Share. We spent a few months last year in Ethiopia. We got back in the middle of March. This is the ladies in the front here are part of the Mersey tribe, the ones that are known for the disc in the lip. The Karo tribe is on the left. Here's your gelada baboon. We have some experiences with in the Suez Canal. The US had just bombed Soleimani, killed Soleimani, and the Iranians were kind of a short fuse right then. We were, about maybe 7 or 8 miles from the Iranian border as we passed through, and we had all the protection of the British Navy, submarines and helicopters, quite an experience. These are all stories in our new book. We also tell stories about Vietnam, our painted African dog, And some of our favorite photos, these are from Cambodia, Vietnam. We tell stories about our adventures in the Amazon, and you can see the GATs in the lower left-hand corner, the central laundry area in Mumbai, in India. And that's pretty much it for today. And if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer. We've had a great time. We want to thank Corliss and Barbara for inviting us and letting us speak to you. And if you're interested, compassroseimages.com is our website. We sell our books. We also have access to our canvas and metal matted prints, calendars, trays, coasters, trivets. It's kind of fun to look through our website if you have nothing else to do. We have about 1,000 different animals that you can view.
Also on the website is our phone number in case you need to call us for any reason. We'd be more than happy to talk with you.
So here we are again. Here.
You guys are muted.
Margaret, you're muted.
Oh, there we go.
Margaret is still muted.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you, Corliss. So you anticipated the first question, and that was, how do you buy the book that you read to us from? We all want to know what happened in the story. She asked if it would be available in the library. And Brenda, will it be available?
Yes, we will get it. Yes.
Great.
Yeah, so if you buy the book from the website, just send us an email and we can sign it over to you or to the library. It's available also on Amazon, but they just mail them out and we don't know who gets them. So.
Okay. So the second question is, how has COVID changed your travels?
Well, this will be our first trip since COVID. We were in Ethiopia last year when my husband sent an email saying, you better get out of there or you'll never get out of there. So we were waiting for the Queen Mary to pick us up in Cape Town, and Queen Mary, because of COVID, dropped everybody off in Australia and never showed up. So at the last minute, we found a flight out of through Turkey and to get home through Boston. Although in Ethiopia, we were monitored constantly, our temperatures taken. In fact, one time we were all ready to get off the plane. We had all of our carry-on baggage at the door opened, and we were told to go back into our seats. And on the plane came about 6 or 7 hazmat covered individuals who took temperatures of everybody on the plane. And we were told if there was one person that had a fever, we'd all be quarantined. I could have sworn that there would be a 2-year-old in the back with an ear infection and we'd all be quarantined, but no one was sick. And we had no trouble in Ethiopia with all the plane flights. The trouble is when we got back to Boston, no one even asked us a question. This is mid-March. We just got off the plane and went our merry way. We're going to Zambia and South Africa in December 26th we leave. We have to be COVID tested. The trouble is it's 3 days to get to where we're going to be going. So the COVID test will not be valid unless we get our COVID test on the 25th, which is Christmas. Good luck. So we're trying to figure out how to orchestrate that. They also do not have rapid tests in Africa, and only 1.7% have been vaccinated. So
In Zambia.
in Zambia. So we're going to have to figure out how to orchestrate that. We'll have to sit in a hotel for 3 days waiting for tests to come back each time we change areas. So we're not sure how it's going to work. We have good masks. We've been vaccinated 3 times. So we feel pretty safe, but we will be very careful.
What are your personal favorite animals?
Mine's the leopard. I think they are absolutely magnificent. They are just exceptionally beautiful animals.
And I like the zebra. I just think they're very cool. They're all different. They're very good parents. They're kind of feisty, kind of like me. So I really.
She's not feisty.
Yeah, whatever. But I like the zebras. Of course, we also like penguins. We've been to Antarctica 6 times, and they're fun. They'll come right up to you, peck your boots. The kids, if you have a lens cap hanging down, they'll peck the lens cap and play for 10 or 15 minutes with the lens cap. So it's kind of fun watching them play as well.
We also have 3 thank yous for this amazing performance. So
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
presentation, really.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
should-
Thank you very much. Oh, and we have a new message that just popped in.
Where
Oh,
do you stay in
stay.
Antarctica?
Yeah.
We stay on expedition ships. There are no hotels there. So it's an expedition ship. It's fun because they also have speakers that are knowledgeable about the flora and fauna, the animals, the topography. We learned so much about tectonic plates and things like how the continent was actually formed. So very interesting.
So you'll pull up to an area and get off for morning, come back for lunch, get back on the ship, go back out again in the afternoon, come back for dinner, go back at night, or you can kayak with whales at midnight. It's quite exciting, really fun. But weather is the equalizer. You think
Yeah.
you're doing well, you take your parka off, and then the katabatic winds bring a huge snowstorm, and back on with the parkas.
Thank you, Charles. We enjoyed it.
So you have another thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate.
Oh, very much.
Yeah, it's kind of hard with the Zoom, but I'm hoping you enjoyed it.
We did very much.
Thank you.
Yep,
All right.
thank you. I'm going to stop recording now.